Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of my series on the writings of Seneca. So today I'm still focusing, like the last episode, on letter number 2, on discursiveness in reading. And we're actually diving a little bit more into the actual subject of the letter today, which is focused around how we can better study, practice, engage with ideas, and embody the wisdom that we're trying to learn. And this passage that I'm going to read you from this letter is a really beautiful example of Seneca kind of setting up a problem for you and also giving a potential solution. And it's a solution to a problem that I'm sure that many of you deal with because people have dealt with this throughout the ages, and I absolutely wrestle with this problem every single day. So I'm going to read this passage to you and have a think about if this applies to you. He says, quote, "You must linger among a limited number of master thinkers and digest their works, if you would derive ideas which shall win firm hold in your mind. Everywhere means nowhere. When a person spends all his time in foreign travel, he ends by having many acquaintances, but no real friends. And the same thing must hold true for men who seek intimate acquaintance with no single author, but visit them all in a hasty and hurried manner. Food does no good and is not assimilated into the body if it leaves the stomach as soon as it is eaten. A plant which is often moved can never grow strong. There is nothing so efficacious that it can be helpful while it is being shifted about, and in reading of many books is distraction. Accordingly, since you cannot read all the books which you may possess, it is enough to possess only as many books as you can read." End quote. So, I want to tell you about 2020 for me, what it looked like in terms of my library and my study. On the one hand, I was actually doing what Seneca has suggested here, which is picking one or two key teachers, key wise people who you think I could really learn something from them, right? And you really dive into what they say, dive into what they teach, and try to understand and let their ideas seep into your mind, right? So I was doing that, but I was doing that via YouTube, right? So I had become absolutely fascinated with the sort of stuff that Jordan Peterson was saying. And I know it's not exactly cool to a lot of people to to say that I was really fascinated by Jordan Peterson's ideas. I don't quite understand why, because I mean, to me, as I listened to those ideas, they really resonated with me, and I was trying to understand the core, the absolute fundamental ideas that he was trying to express to people. And I noticed as I did that, and as I listened to pretty much every one of his lectures, every one of his interviews, I really noticed that I was starting to fully grasp some of the ideas that he was talking about, and that was so meaningful to me. It was so enlightening to be able to actually understand a deep idea that somebody is trying to teach. But you can't necessarily get that by watching one or two interviews or watching one or two lectures or reading one or two books. You cannot get that unless you go deep into what they're trying to teach. And this passage as well is partly the inspiration behind why I'm picking Seneca and saying I'm going to read all of his letters, and I'm going to also document my study with Seneca and document how it makes me feel and what it makes me think about. Because that's going to really get me heavily acquainted with the ideas of Seneca, somebody who I really admire and would love to understand. And so, anyway, I now want to paint a completely different picture of 2020 for you. And I'm sure that many of you will resonate with this story very heavily. So, while I was also studying all of the YouTube lectures and interviews and that sort of stuff, and I was really going deep into those theories and concepts and ideas, I was at the same time finding all of these books that I really wanted to read. And all of a sudden, it was like every week there was like one or two or three books coming in the mail, my library is building massively, and all of a sudden I've got all of these authors, all of these massive books and heavy books that you really want to spend a lot of time with on my bookshelf. And I can tell you that the other day I calculated how long it would take me if, for example, I spent about a month reading each author that I want to study from. And it would take me about 10 years at 1 month per author to digest basically the ideas of all of these people who I want to learn from. And that's probably not sustainable, at least over a short period of time. You'd want to spread that over your lifetime. But I really understand the principles that Seneca is talking about in this passage, because essentially what he's trying to say is, listen, you can go out there and think that you're going to read all of the books in the world, right? But you're not. And you can think that you're going to really digest and understand the lessons of some of your favorite teachers, but there's only a few people that you're actually going to be able to spend a lot of time with and really grasp their ideas. And so why don't you instead find one or two or maybe three or four teachers whose genius is absolutely unquestionable to you, who you really want to know how they think about the world and what they are trying to convey to you. And why don't you spend the majority of your time with those thinkers? So that instead of becoming a nobody by just trying to dabble in all of these other teachers, why don't you become a somebody by actually knowing what these specific teachers are trying to teach you? And I think that there's a real argument to be made for being a well-read individual. I think that it's really valuable for us to expand our intellectual horizons and to read from many people so that we get different perspectives. But I think that the true value of what Seneca is saying here is if you think about it like this: every single teacher or philosopher or theologian or author or any sort of person who is trying to convey to you the way that they see the world, they see the world in a completely different way to you, and in a completely different way to other teachers and authors and thinkers. And so to actually fully grasp those ideas and concepts and theories, you're going to have to spend a lot of time, right? And so it's actually a brilliant idea to pick the two or three really amazing teachers who you would love to think like, and to try and understand where they were coming from. And you can even think of somebody like Zeno of Citium, for example, the founder of the Stoic school of philosophy. I mean, here's a guy who spent, I believe, 20 years studying with Crates of Thebes, who was a Cynic philosopher. And the reason why he spent 20 years studying from this one philosopher was because he knew that if he could learn from somebody who really knew how to think, then maybe he could learn how to think. And when he did learn how to think, what did he do? He started a brand new school of philosophy, one that we now talk about thousands of years later. And an important thing to take away from that story is that after he had finished learning from Crates of Thebes, Zeno didn't go on to just start another school of Cynic philosophy. He started a completely different philosophy, still influenced by the thoughts of the Cynics, but different in its own right. All right, and so when you study somebody deeply and try to really understand their ideas, the purpose isn't so that you can continue to think like them. It's just to learn how to think like a true thinker, so that then you can start thinking like yourself and bring forth ideas that you believe are valuable and useful, right? So that's the reason why we are now diving so deep into Seneca's writings, because I want to suck the marrow out of his writings and see if I can learn something that I wouldn't necessarily get out of just skimming through and then moving on to Marcus Aurelius and then moving on to Epictetus and then to Plato and then to you want to spend some quality time with these kinds of thinkers. So I think that that's a really helpful tactic, and I've used it in my life, and I know for a fact that it has been so valuable for me to just consider spending some quality time with somebody who you really want to learn from. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you allow this information to be present in your life so that you can actually embody the wisdom as opposed to just skimming past it. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Hey there, YouTubers. I just wanted to let you know that if you love this episode and you'd like many more just like it, then you can head to patreon.com/Simon J.E. Drew. There you'll get access to exclusive episodes that haven't been released yet, as well as many other benefits. Also, if you'd like to work one-on-one with me in my coaching practice, then you can head to simonjedrew.com/coaching. Talk to you soon.